My name is Brooke Michelle, and at 28, I finally achieved what seemed impossible, buying my dream apartment in downtown Boston after 5 years of relentless saving. I was so proud of this milestone, especially coming from my background where success was rarely acknowledged. Despite our complicated history, I thought my family would finally see my worth, so I sent everyone invitations to my housewarming party. I spent days preparing, making everything perfect. 6 o'clock came and went. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Not one family member showed up. If you're watching this from your own place, wherever that may be, hit subscribe and leave a comment letting me know where you're from. Stay with me as I share how what felt like rock bottom became my greatest blessing. Growing up in Lexington, a small suburb outside Boston, I always felt like the odd one out in my family. Our modest 2-story home housed what appeared to be the perfect American family, but appearances can be deceiving. My father, Richard, worked as a construction manager, a man of few words who saved most of his pride and attention from my older brother. My mother, Diane, was a part-time receptionist at a dentist's office who always seemed to be walking on eggshells around my father, never contradicting his opinions or standing up for me when I needed support. My brother Jason, 4 years older than me at 32, was the undisputed star of our family. A natural athlete from the moment he could walk, he earned a football scholarship to a state university and was treated like royalty by our parents. Every conversation at dinner revolved around Jason's latest game, Jason's coach's opinion, or Jason's prospects for going pro, which never materialized, by the way, though that didn't diminish his golden child status. My sister Madison, 2 years my senior at 30, learned early on where the family power lay. She attached herself to Jason's orbit, becoming his biggest cheerleader and my parents' perfect daughter who never rocked the boat. Madison was pretty and popular, and she made sure I knew I was neither of those things in her eye. Then there was me, the youngest, the afterthought. I was quiet and bookish, preferring the company of novels and computers to the sporting events that consumed our family weekends. My academic achievements were footnotes in family conversations, if mentioned at all. "That's nice, Brooke," my mother would say dismissively when I showed her an A+ paper, before quickly turning to ask Jason if he wanted seconds at dinner. One particular memory stands out vividly. I was 16 and had just been named valedictorian of my junior class. I came home bursting with excitement, only to find my family gathered around the TV watching a replay of one of Jason's old high school games. "Mom, Dad, I have news," I announced, clutching my notification letter. "Shh, not now, Brooke," my father said without looking away from the screen. "This is the game where Jason made that incredible touchdown in the fourth quarter." I stood there for several minutes, waiting for a commercial break that never seemed to come, before quietly retreating to my room, my accomplishment unshared. My graduation day was another painful memory. While other parents took dozens of photos and brought flower bouquets, one showed up late because Jason had a minor fender bender that morning. They missed my valedictorian speech entirely, and when I met them afterward, my father's first words were, "Let's hurry this up. The body shop closes at 5, and we need to get Jason's car looked at." No congratulations, no pride, just inconvenience. When it came time for college, I applied for every scholarship I could find. My parents made it clear that most of their savings had gone towards supporting Jason after his sports career didn't take off. Despite my perfect GPA, they considered higher education a luxury, not a necessity, especially for a daughter who would probably just get married anyway, as my father once casually remarked. I was accepted to MIT with a partial scholarship, but it wasn't enough. When I asked my parents for help, my father shrugged. "We just helped Madison with her wedding. Money's tight." I later learned helping with Madison's wedding meant giving her a $20,000 check, while they couldn't spare $5,000 for my education. I took out loans and worked 2 part-time jobs throughout college. During those 4 years, I went home for holidays only to be treated like a visitor who needed to be accommodated rather than a daughter coming home. Conversations still revolved around Jason's latest job prospect or Madison's new house. My computer science major was referred to as playing with computers by my father. After graduation, our already tenuous relationship became even more distant. I'd call my mother every few weeks, but our conversations were superficial. She rarely asked about my life, and when I tried to share my career progress, she would quickly change the subject to something Jason or Madison was doing. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, and made the effort to attend family gatherings when invited. These invitations became increasingly rare, and when I did show up, I felt like an outsider watching a family to which I didn't quite belong. The last Thanksgiving I attended, 2 years ago, my father spent the entire meal talking about how proud he was that Jason had finally been promoted to assistant manager at the sporting goods store where he worked. My recent promotion to senior software engineer at a major tech company didn't warrant a mention. Despite all this, some desperate part of me still craved their approval. Some childish corner of my heart still believed that if I achieved enough, became successful enough, they would finally see me, really see me, and maybe, just maybe, they would be proud. That's why buying my apartment meant so much. It wasn't just a home, it was tangible proof of my success, a success I had achieved entirely on my own. In my mind, this would be the achievement they couldn't ignore. This would be the moment they would finally acknowledge my worth. How wrong I was. After graduating from MIT, I accepted an entry-level position at a Boston tech startup called Innovate Tech. The salary wasn't impressive, but the company had potential, and I was determined to work my way up. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Allston with a bathroom so small I could barely turn around in it and a kitchen that consisted of a mini fridge, a 2-burner stove, and approximately 2 square feet of counter space. To save money, I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I sold my car and took public transportation everywhere. While friends from college were traveling to Europe or moving into luxury apartments with their parents' help, I was putting away every extra penny. After my first year at Innovate Tech, the company secured major funding, and I received a modest promotion. Instead of upgrading my living situation, I continued my frugal lifestyle. I found a slightly larger apartment but took on 2 roommates to keep costs down. Sarah was a nurse working night shifts, and Emma was a graduate student who was rarely home. We shared a cramped 3-bedroom with 1 bathroom and paper-thin walls, but my portion of the rent was manageable, allowing me to continue saving. I worked overtime whenever possible, took on freelance coding projects on weekends, and tracked every expense in a detailed spreadsheet. My social life was practically non-existent, but I kept my eyes on the prize: financial independence and a place of my own. By year 3, I had been promoted twice more and had a healthy amount saved for a down payment. I began browsing real estate listings, getting a feel for the market, understanding what I could afford and where. Boston's real estate market was notoriously expensive, but I was determined. My first apartment viewing was a disappointment. The listing photos had been cleverly angled to hide the water damage on the ceiling and the view of a brick wall from every window. The second property was in a neighborhood that didn't feel safe. The third was promising until I discovered it was directly above a bar that stayed open until 2 in the morning. For 6 months, I continued this frustrating search. I'd get my hopes up about a property only to discover a fatal flaw or be outbid by someone with more money or better credit. Each rejection felt personal, like the universe was telling me I didn't deserve a home of my own. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, my real estate agent called. "Brooke, there's a property that just listed. It's a bit above your budget, but I think you should see it before it's gone." I almost didn't go. I was tired of disappointment, tired of getting my hopes up. But something told me to take a chance. The moment I walked into the loft, I knew this was home. It was in a converted textile factory in the South End, with exposed brick walls, 14-foot ceilings, and massive windows that flooded the space with natural light. The previous owner had installed a modern kitchen with sleek appliances and quartz countertops. The bathroom featured a walk-in shower with multiple shower heads and a heated floor. The bedroom area was separated from the main living space by a partial wall, creating a sense of privacy without sacrificing the open-concept feel. "What's the catch?" I asked my agent, certain there had to be something wrong with it. "The owner is relocating for work and needs to sell quickly. It's priced to move." It was still $15,000 above my budget, but I couldn't let it go. I went home, reworked my financial plan, and decided I could make it work if I stretched myself a bit further. I submitted an offer the next morning, $10,000 below asking price, but the absolute maximum I could afford. 24 hours later, my agent called. "They've accepted your offer." What followed was a whirlwind of paperwork, inspections, and anxiety. The mortgage approval process was nerve-wracking. My credit was good, but my debt-to-income ratio was borderline due to my student loans. I spent a week in a constant state of nausea, waiting to hear if the bank would approve my loan. When the approval finally came through, I cried from relief. The closing date was set for 4 weeks later, giving me time to pack my modest belongings and prepare for the move. The day I received the keys was surreal. I stood in the empty loft, my footsteps echoing against the hardwood floors, and couldn't believe it was mine. All mine. No roommates, no landlord, no one to answer to but myself. I spent the next month transforming the space into my home. I couldn't afford expensive furniture, but I was resourceful. I found a beautiful vintage sofa at a thrift store and had it roof-upholstered. I built my own dining table using reclaimed wood and instructions from a DIY website. I hung artwork I had collected over the years and photographs I had taken during rare moments of leisure. By the time the apartment was ready, I felt a sense of pride I had never experienced before. This place represented every sacrifice, every extra hour worked, every simple pleasure delayed. It was the physical manifestation of my independence and success. That's when I made the decision to host a housewarming party. Despite years of emotional distance, I wanted to share this achievement with my family. I wanted them to see what I had accomplished. Perhaps naively, I believed that standing in the physical evidence of my success would finally make them see my work. I sent elegant invitations to my parents, Jason, Madison, and a few extended family members. I followed up with text messages to make sure they had received them. My mother's response was noncommittal. "We'll try to make it." Jason didn't respond at all. Madison sent a quick "sounds fun, we'll check our schedule." Still, I remained hopeful. I spent days planning the perfect menu, considering everyone's preferences. I knew my father loved deviled eggs, so I practiced until I perfected the recipe. I remembered Madison's preference for white wine and Jason's favorite beer. I cleaned until every surface gleamed, arranged fresh flowers in crystal vases I'd splurged on for the occasion, and even created small gift bags for each guest to take home. The day before the party, I sent another round of text messages. "Looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow at 6. No need to bring anything except yourselves." My mother responded with a thumbs-up emoji. It wasn't enthusiastic, but it was something. I went to bed that night filled with nervous anticipation, hoping that tomorrow would mark a new chapter in my relationship with my family. The morning of the housewarming party, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. I had taken the day off work to make final preparations, and I had a detailed schedule planned to ensure everything would be perfect. By noon, I had rearranged the furniture 3 times, trying to create the optimal flow for conversation. I wanted the apartment to feel welcoming but also impressive. I positioned my sleek laptop on the kitchen counter with a slideshow of before and after photos, documenting the transformation of the space. The afternoon was dedicated to food preparation. I had decided on an upscale version of Comfort Foods mini crab cakes, bacon-wrapped dates, a charcuterie board with imported cheeses, and homemade spinach dip in a sourdough bread bowl. For dessert, I had prepared individual chocolate lava cakes that only needed to be popped into the oven during the party. At 4 o'clock, I filled a large beverage tub with ice and arranged bottles of wine, beer, and sparkling water. I created a signature cocktail I called the Homeowner, a gin and elderflower concoction garnished with fresh mint from the small herb garden I had started on my windowsill. I even printed small cards with the recipe, imagining guests might want to recreate it at home. By 5, everything was ready, and I hurried to get myself prepared. I had purchased a new dress for the occasion, a deep blue wrap dress that made me feel confident and sophisticated. I styled my hair in loose waves, applied makeup more carefully than usual, and even splurged on a new perfume. At 5:45, I took one last look around my apartment. The soft jazz playlist I had curated filled the space with warmth. Candles flickered on the coffee table and dining table. The food was artfully arranged on serving platters. Everything was perfect. I took a selfie to commemorate the moment, smiling broadly at the camera with my beautifully arranged apartment in the background. I posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Ready to welcome loved ones to my new home." Then I waited. 6 o'clock came and went. I wasn't concerned yet. People are often fashionably late to these things, right? By 6:30, I sent a group text. "Food and drinks are ready whenever you arrive. No rush, just letting you know I'm here and waiting." No responses. By 7, I began to feel a knot forming in my stomach. I checked my phone repeatedly, making sure it was working properly. I reread the invitations I had sent, confirming that I had included the correct date and time. I had. At 7:15, I called my mother. The call went to voicemail after 4 rings. "Hi Mom, just checking to see if you and Dad are on your way. Let me know if you need directions. Hope to see you soon." At 7:30, I texted Jason, "Hey, are you planning to stop by tonight? I have your favorite beer." No response. At 7:45, I tried Madison. "Are you and Dave coming tonight? I'm getting a little worried since I haven't heard from anyone." 3 dots appeared, indicating she was typing a response. Then they disappeared. No message came through. By 8 o'clock, the reality of the situation was becoming painfully clear. No one was coming. The ice in the beverage tub had begun to melt. The carefully arranged food remained untouched. The playlist had cycled back to the beginning. I sat down on my new sofa, still holding my phone, and checked social media. The first post I saw was from Madison, posted at 5:30, "Date night with my amazing husband," with a photo of her and Dave at a restaurant. I scrolled further and found a post from my mother from that morning. "So proud of our Jason starting his new position as manager today. Celebration dinner tonight." There it was, they hadn't forgotten about my housewarming party. They had chosen not to come, and they hadn't even had the decency to tell me. With trembling fingers, I tried one last time, sending a message to the family group chat. "Is anyone coming tonight?" After 10 minutes, my mother finally responded. "Oh honey, didn't you get my message? Jason got a promotion, and we're taking him out to celebrate. I thought I told you we couldn't make it. Maybe next weekend." She hadn't told me. I knew she hadn't told me. My father chimed in, "Why would we drive all the way to Boston on a weeknight?" Madison added, "Sorry sis had plans with Dave. Good luck with the new place though." Jason didn't respond at all. I set my phone down and looked around at my beautiful apartment, prepared so carefully for people who couldn't be bothered to show up or even decline properly. The magnitude of their indifference hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a simple oversight or scheduling conflict. This was a clear message about my place in their lives, or rather, my lack of place. I walked to the beverage tub, took out a bottle of expensive champagne I had been saving to toast with my family, and opened it. I poured myself a glass and took a long drink, not even tasting it. Then I sat back down on the sofa and finally let the tears come. I cried for the little girl who had always tried so hard to be seen. I cried for the young woman who had worked herself to exhaustion to prove her worth. I cried for myself, sitting alone in an apartment that represented everything I had accomplished, with no one to share in my joy. The tears came in waves, soaking the front of my new dress. I curled up on the sofa, my body shaking with sobs, surrounded by the physical evidence of my achievements and the equally tangible evidence of my family's apathy. In that moment, I had never felt more alone. I'm not sure how long I sat there crying. Time seemed suspended as I cycled through emotions: sadness, anger, humiliation, and back to sadness again. The carefully applied makeup had long since been washed away by tears, and my new dress was wrinkled from being clutched and twisted in my hand. The sound of the doorbell startled me so much I nearly spilled what remained of my champagne. For one irrational moment, I thought perhaps my family had decided to come after all. But as I glanced at the clock, it was after 9. I knew that wasn't the case. I considered ignoring it. I was in no state to see anyone. But curiosity got the better of me, and I shuffled to the door, hastily wiping at my tear-stained face. When I opened the door, I found Allison from work standing there, concern evident in her expression. Allison was a UX designer I had collaborated with on several projects. We were friendly at work but had never socialized outside the office. "Brooke, are you okay?" she asked, taking in my disheveled appearance. "You weren't answering your texts, and you mentioned your housewarming was tonight, so I thought I'd check if everything was all right." I hadn't even heard my phone notifications through my crying jag. I tried to form a response, but instead, fresh tears welled up. "Oh no, what happened?" Allison stepped forward, gently guiding me back inside. That's when I noticed she wasn't alone. Behind her stood her boyfriend Tyler, whom I had met briefly at a company holiday party, and a woman I didn't recognize who was introduced as Rachel, Tyler's coworker. "I'm so sorry," I managed, embarrassed by my state. "I wasn't expecting anyone. My family, they didn't come, no one came." The three exchanged glances, and then Allison said firmly, "Well, we're here now, and your place is absolutely gorgeous, Brooke." It really is, Rachel agreed, looking around with genuine appreciation. That exposed brick is to die for, and the light in here must be amazing during the day. Tyler had wandered over to the kitchen island. And you've got enough food here to feed an army. Mind if we dig in? I'm starving. Before I could respond, Allison had guided me to the bathroom. Splash some cold water on your face. I'll pour us all some drinks, and you can give us the grand tour. In a daze, I followed her suggestion. When I emerged from the bathroom, I found Tyler and Rachel making themselves comfortable, plates filled with the appetizers I had so carefully prepared. Allison handed me a fresh glass of champagne. To Brooke and her incredible new home, she toasted, raising her glass. Tyler and Rachel joined in, and for the first time that evening, I felt a small spark of the joy I had anticipated. As I gave them a tour of the apartment, their reactions were everything I had hoped for from my family. They asked questions about the renovation process, complimented my decorating choices, and expressed genuine admiration for what I had accomplished. I can't believe you did all this on your own, Rachel said, running her hand along the kitchen countertop. I'm 34 and still renting with 2 roommates. The view from these windows is incredible, Tyler added, looking out at the city lights. You can even see the Charles River from here. As we settled back in the living area with refilled plates and glasses, Allison asked gently, "So what happened with your family?" I found myself telling them everything, not just about tonight, but about years of feeling invisible, unimportant, and unworthy of celebration. It was the first time I had ever voiced these feelings aloud, and there was something cathartic about finally naming the pain I had carried for so long. When I finished, there was a moment of silence, and then Rachel reached over and squeezed my hand. Their loss, truly. What you've accomplished is remarkable, and anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to be part of this celebration. Speaking of celebration, Tyler said, pulling out his phone, mind if I invite a few more people? My buddy Michael lives just a few blocks from here, and he's with some friends at a bar nearby. They could be here in 20 minutes. I hesitated. The thought of more people seeing me in this vulnerable state was intimidating. But Allison seemed to read my mind. Only if you're comfortable, Brooke. But sometimes the best parties are the impromptu ones with unexpected guests. Maybe it was the champagne, or maybe it was the simple kindness these near strangers had shown me, but I found myself nodding. Yes, invite them, the more the merrier. Within half an hour, my apartment was filled with the sound of conversation and laughter. Michael arrived with 2 friends, Jessica and Ethan. Rachel called her roommate Zoe, who brought her boyfriend David. Allison texted our coworker Marcus, who lived nearby and showed up with a bottle of wine. What had begun as the most painful evening of my adult life had transformed into something unexpected and wonderful. These people, some I barely knew, others complete strangers, filled my home with the warmth and celebration I had craved. They devoured the food I had prepared, exclaiming over how delicious everything was. They explored my apartment with genuine interest and admiration. They asked questions about my journey to homeownership and listened attentively to my answers. As the night progressed, I found myself relaxing, even enjoying myself. Michael, who turned out to be an amateur photographer, insisted on taking proper housewarming photos. These are moments worth remembering, he said as he arranged group shots and candid captures of people enjoying the space. Jessica, a paralegal I had just met, pulled me aside at one point. I know we just met, but I want you to know how impressive this is, she said, gesturing around the apartment. My parents helped my brother buy his first place, and even with their support, it wasn't nearly as nice as this. What you've done completely on your own is exceptional. By midnight, the impromptu gathering showed no signs of winding down. Someone had taken over DJ duties on my laptop, and a small dance area had formed in the corner of the living room. Conversations flowed freely, new connections were being made, and my apartment was serving exactly the purpose I had hoped it would, bringing people together in celebration. Around 1 a.m, I found myself on the balcony with Allison, taking a moment of quiet amidst the ongoing party inside. How are you feeling? She asked. I considered the question carefully. I'm still hurt about my family, I admitted. That pain isn't going to disappear in one night. But this, I gestured toward the lively gathering visible through the glass doors, this has been unexpected and kind of wonderful. Allison smiled. Sometimes the families we create are more important than the ones we're born into. As the night wound down, people began to leave in small groups, each thanking me for my hospitality as if the gathering had been planned all along. By 3 in the morning, only Allison, Tyler, Rachel, and Michael remained, all too tired to make their way home. "Hope you don't mind a sleepover," Rachel said with a yawn, curling up on one end of my sofa. "Not at all," I replied, distributing spare blankets and pillows. As I finally lay down in my own bed, listening to the soft sounds of my unexpected guests settling in for the night, I realized something profound. My apartment had already become a home not because my family had acknowledged it, but because it had been filled with genuine connection, laughter, and kindness from people who had shown up when I needed them most. For the first time since opening the door to an empty hallway as earlier, I fell asleep with a sense of peace. The morning after the impromptu party, I woke to the smell of coffee brewing. For a moment, I was disoriented, the events of the previous night flooding back in pieces, the crushing disappointment, the unexpected rescue, the surprising joy that followed. I found Michael in my kitchen, quietly preparing coffee for everyone. "Hope you don't mind," he whispered, gesturing to the sleeping forms of Allison, Tyler, and Rachel scattered across my living room furniture. "Thought everyone could use a cup when they wake up." We sat at my kitchen island, speaking in hushed tones as the others slept. There was something intimate about sharing this quiet morning moment with someone who had been a stranger just ago. "Thank you," I said simply, "for last night, for being here this morning, for the coffee." He smiled. "Thank you for letting a bunch of random people crash your housewarming and then crash on your furniture." One by one, the others woke up. We shared a lazy morning of coffee and leftover housewarming snacks, rehashing funny moments from the night before and exchanging contact information. There was an unspoken understanding that this impromptu gathering had created connections worth maintaining. After everyone left, I found myself alone in my apartment, which now felt different, imbued with new memories that overshadowed the initial pain of the evening. Still, as I cleaned up the last remnants of the party, the hurt of my family's absence resurfaced. Later that afternoon, Jessica called to check on me. We had connected strongly the night before, and her concern felt genuine. "How are you really doing?" she asked after some small talk. "I'm okay," I replied automatically, then paused. "Actually, that's not true. I'm still upset about my family." "You have every right to be," Jessica affirmed. "What they did was incredibly hurtful." "The thing is," I continued, "this isn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern that's existed my whole life. And I've never really confronted them about it." "Maybe it's time you did," Jessica suggested gently. "Not because they deserve a chance to explain, but because you deserve to express how their actions have affected you." That conversation planted a seed. For the next few days, I thought about what confronting my family would look like. I drafted messages in my head, imagined phone calls, considered emails. None felt right. Finally, a week after the housewarming, I decided a video call would be best, more personal than a text or email, but allowing me some distance to maintain composure. I sent a group text to my parents, Jason and Madison. "I'd like to have a family video call this Sunday at 7 p.m. It's important to me that everyone attend." My mother responded first, "Is everything okay, honey?" "We'll discuss on Sunday," I replied, not wanting to get into it via text. "My father, we have plans to watch the game." "This is important," I insisted. "Please make time." "Madison, what's this about?" "I'd prefer to discuss it when everyone is present," I repeated. Jason didn't respond at all, but my mother eventually confirmed he would be there. When Sunday evening arrived, I felt a mixture of nervousness and resolve. I had prepared what I wanted to say, rehearsing key points to ensure I wouldn't be derailed by emotion. At exactly 7, I initiated the video call. My parents appeared first, sitting together on their living room sofa. Madison joined from her kitchen, and finally, Jason connected, the sound of a sports game audible in the background. "This better be important," my father grumbled. "The Patriots are playing." Taking a deep breath, I began. "I wanted to talk about what happened last week with my housewarming party." "Oh honey, I told you we had plans," my mother interrupted. "Jason got a promotion, and we had to celebrate." "No, Mom, you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me anything until I asked why no one had shown up. After I had spent days preparing. After I had been sitting alone for—" "Well, you should have confirmed before assuming we were coming," my father said dismissively. "I did confirm multiple times. No one responded clearly." "It's just a housewarming, Brooke," Jason interjected, clearly distracted by whatever game he was watching. "It's not that big a deal." "That's exactly the problem," I said, feeling my carefully prepared speech giving way to raw emotion. Nothing I do is ever a big deal to any of you, but this apartment isn't just a place to live. It represents years of hard work and sacrifice. I did this completely on my own, without any help from anyone. This was a major achievement for me, and I wanted to share it with my family. Buying an apartment isn't a real achievement, my father scoffed. It's what adults do. You want a medal for doing what you're supposed to do. I felt as if I'd been slapped. Is that how you felt when Jason got promoted to manager at a sporting goods store? Because that warranted a family celebration. That's different, my mother quickly defended. Jason has been working so hard. And I haven't, I challenged. I put myself through MIT while working 2 jobs. I've been saving for this apartment for 5 years, living with roommates, barely spending money on anything else. But none of that matters to any of you, does it? Don't be so dramatic, Madison sighed. We're busy people. I have children, you know. I'm not asking you to drop everything all the time. I'm asking why, for one important evening, my family couldn't show up for me. Why you couldn't even bother to properly decline. Look, we're sorry if your feelings got hurt, my father said in a tone that conveyed anything but remorse. But you've always been too sensitive, Brooke. Always needing attention, always making everything about you. I actually laughed at that, a hollow sound devoid of humor. When has anything ever been about me in this family? Name one time when my achievements or needs took precedent. An uncomfortable silence followed, broken by my mother's weak attempt at reconciliation. We love you, honey. We just get busy sometimes. Too busy for a text message saying you can't make it? Too busy to acknowledge a major life milestone? That's not being busy, Mom. That's not caring. Now wait just a minute, my father began, his face reddening. No, I've waited my whole life for this family to see me, to value me the way you value Jason and Madison. I'm done waiting. I'm done trying to earn approval that's never going to come. So what are you saying? Madison asked, an edge to her voice. I'm saying I need to step back from this relationship. It's not healthy for me to keep seeking validation from people who have shown repeatedly that they're unwilling or unable to provide it. You're being ridiculous. Jason finally looked directly at the camera, the game forgotten. You're going to cut off your family because we missed one party. This isn't about one party, I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. This is about a lifetime of being treated as an afterthought. The party was just the final confirmation of what I've always known but never wanted to accept. Fine, my father said coldly. If that's how you feel, take your space. But don't come crawling back when you realize family is all you've got. The irony of his statement wasn't lost on me. That's just it, Dad. Last week showed me that family isn't all I've got. I have people in my life who show up, who celebrate my successes, who see my worth. And none of them share my DNA. I ended the call before anyone could respond, my hands shaking but my resolve firm. The conversation hadn't gone as I'd planned. There had been no moment of realization from my family, no tearful apologies or promises to do better. Instead, it had confirmed what I needed to know. My decision to create distance was the right one. That night, I wrote a letter I never intended to send. In it, I detailed every remembered slight, every moment of feeling invisible, every time I had swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. I wrote about the birthdays that were forgotten, the achievements that went unacknowledged, the support that was never offered. I poured decades of pain onto those pages, not holding anything back. When I finished, I read it through once, tears streaming down my face. Then I placed it in a box, along with the unread housewarming invitations I had collected from my apartment, and stored it on a high shelf in my closet. Those feelings had been acknowledged, documented, and now they could be put away, not forgotten, but no longer consuming my present. I slept more soundly that night than I had in years. The weeks following my confrontation with my family were simultaneously challenging and liberating. There were moments of doubt, of course. Cultural conditioning about the sanctity of family bonds is powerful, and I occasionally questioned whether I had been too harsh, too definitive in my boundary setting. During those moments of wavering, I would remember my father's dismissive tone declaring that buying an apartment isn't a real achievement. I would recall the decades of similar dismissals, the pattern of being overlooked and undervalued, and my resolve would strengthen again. My mother sent a few tentative text messages in the following days. Hope you're doing well, and just checking in. I responded politely but briefly, maintaining the distance I had established. Jason and my father didn't reach out at all. Madison sent one message that read, "You'll regret pushing family away when you need us," which I chose not to dignify with a response. What surprised me most during this period wasn't the emptiness of distancing myself from my biological family, but rather how quickly that void began to fill with more meaningful connection. Allison had become a regular visitor to my apartment. What began as occasional after-work drinks evolved into a deep friendship. She was the first person I called when I received a substantial bonus at work, and her genuine excitement for my success was everything I had always craved from my family. "We should start a dinner club," she suggested one evening as we shared takeout on my balcony. "Once a month, rotating hosts, good food, good conversation, no agenda beyond enjoying each other's company." The idea took root immediately. Our first dinner was hosted at my apartment, with Allison, Tyler, Rachel Meckel, and Jessica in attendance. I prepared my grandmother's lasagna recipe, the only family tradition I wanted to preserve, and we ate at my handmade dining table, sharing stories and building connection. The second dinner was at Rachel and Zoe's apartment, a cozy space filled with plants and vintage finds. The third was at Michael's bachelor pad, which he had apologetically cleaned for the occasion. Each gathering strengthened our bonds, creating a tapestry of friendship that began to feel like the family I had always wanted. Beyond our dinner club, I found myself developing individual relationships with each person. Jessica and I began taking weekend hiking trips, exploring the trails around Massachusetts. Michael and I discovered a shared love of classic films and established a bi-weekly movie night. Rachel introduced me to her community garden plot, and we spent peaceful Sunday mornings tending to vegetables and flowers. My neighbors in the apartment building also became part of my expanding social circle. Belina, an elderly woman who lived down the hall, often invited me for afternoon tea and shared stories of her travels as a young woman. The young couple in the apartment above mine, Sam and Lewis, included me in their game nights and cookouts on the building's shared rooftop. As summer transitioned to fall, I hosted a small dinner party for my birthday, something I had never done before, always expecting the disappointment of family members not showing up or diminishing the importance of the occasion. Everyone I invited came, bearing thoughtful gifts and genuine affection. They surprised me with a homemade cake and an off-key but heartfelt rendition of Happy Birthday. When I blew out the candles, I didn't make a wish. I didn't need to. What I had once wished for to be seen, valued, and celebrated was already manifesting in my life. Around this time, my relationship with Michael began to shift. What had started as friendship was evolving into something deeper. Our movie nights began to include longer conversations, lingering glances, and an undeniable attraction. "I've never met anyone like you," he told me one evening as we walked along the Charles River after dinner. "Someone so resilient, so capable of creating beauty from difficult circumstances." When he kissed me under a canopy of autumn leaves, it felt like another piece of my new life falling perfectly into place. As the holidays approached, I faced the first major test of my new boundaries. Thanksgiving had always been spent with my biological family, regardless of how uncomfortable or overlooked I felt. This year would be different. "What are your plans for Thanksgiving?" Michael asked casually as we grocery shopped together, our domestic rhythms already establishing themselves. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "I won't be going home, but I haven't made alternative plans." "My sister is hosting this year," he said. "She'd love to meet you, no pressure though." The invitation hung in the air, significant in its normalcy. This wasn't an obligation based on shared DNA or family tradition. This was a genuine desire to include me in a celebration, to integrate me into another aspect of his life. "I'd love to come," I said, meaning it completely. Thanksgiving with Michael's family was a revelation. His sister Amanda welcomed me with a warm hug and genuine interest in getting to know me. His parents asked thoughtful questions about my career and apartment, listening attentively to my responses. His nieces and nephews included me in their games without hesitation. During dinner, when Amanda asked everyone to share something they were grateful for, Michael's father mentioned how happy they were that Michael had brought Brooke into their lives. The simple acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Later, as Michael and I walked back to my apartment through the crisp November evening, he asked about my emotional moment at dinner. "It just hit me," I explained, "how different it feels to be wanted at a gathering rather than merely tolerated. Your family made me feel like my presence enhanced their holiday." not like I was an obligation they were fulfilling. Michael squeezed my hand. That's how it should always be. As Christmas approached, our dinner club decided to host a holiday potluck at my apartment. Everyone contributed a dish that represented their family tradition or personal taste. We exchanged modestly priced but thoughtfully selected gifts. We sang carols, some beautifully and others hilariously off-key. Looking around my living room that evening at Allison curled up next to Tyler on the sofa, Rachel and Zoe arranging a gingerbread house on my coffee table, Jessica and her new boyfriend deep in conversation by the window, and Michael watching me with warm eyes from across the room, I was struck by the realization that my apartment had become exactly what I had hoped, a gathering place for people who genuinely cared for each other. This, I understood with perfect clarity, was what family was supposed to be, not a group bound by obligation and shared genetics, but a community created through mutual respect, genuine interest, and consistent showing up for one another. My mother called on Christmas Day. I answered, our conversation brief but civil. She mentioned that Jason was engaged and Madison was expecting her third child. I congratulated her and shared that I had received a significant promotion at work. Her "that's nice, dear" response was so familiar it almost made me laugh. But this time, her dismissal didn't hurt. I no longer needed her validation to know my worth. I had built something more valuable than approval from people unwilling to give it. I had created a life filled with connections that nourished rather than depleted me. "Merry Christmas, Mom," I said, genuinely meaning it despite everything. After we hung up, I rejoined Michael and our friends for Christmas dinner, sliding back into the warmth of chosen family without missing a beat. 1 year after the housewarming party that no one attended, my apartment looked very different. The carefully selected furniture remained, but now the walls were adorned with photographs documenting a year of genuine connection and joy. There was a large framed photo from our New Year's Eve party, all of us wearing ridiculous hats and raising champagne glasses. Next to it hung a candid shot of Michael and me on a spring hiking trip, the Massachusetts countryside spreading out behind us. The refrigerator door was covered with photobooth strips from Allison and Tyler's wedding, where I had served as a bridesmaid. The bookshelf displayed a small clay pot Jessica had made for me during our pottery class experiment. Every corner of my home now held evidence of a life richly lived and deeply connected. My relationship with my biological family had settled into a new pattern. I spoke with my mother approximately once a month, our conversations pleasant but superficial. I exchanged occasional texts with Madison, mostly about her children. My father and Jason remained distant, which I had come to accept as their choice. I had attended Jason's engagement party, a brief appearance that satisfied social obligation without compromising my boundaries. I sent gifts for my nieces and nephews on appropriate occasions. I remembered birthdays with cards and well wishes, but I no longer expected or sought the deep connection and validation I had once desperately craved. The distance I had created wasn't about punishment or spite, it was about self-preservation and growth. I had learned that maintaining relationships with people who consistently devalued me was more harmful than beneficial, even when those people were family. My professional life had flourished alongside my personal growth. The promotion I had received at Christmas had come with significant responsibilities and corresponding compensation. I had begun mentoring junior developers at work, finding unexpected fulfillment in helping others navigate their career path. Michael and I had grown steadily closer throughout the year. We hadn't rushed our relationship, allowing it to develop organically from friendship to romance to partnership. He had gradually moved more of his belongings into my apartment, and we were discussing making our cohabitation official. Our dinner club continued to meet monthly, the core group expanding to include new friends and partners. My apartment had hosted game nights, movie marathons, birthday celebrations, and quiet gatherings to support friends through difficult times. They had become the sanctuary I had always envisioned, not because of its physical attributes, but because of the community that filled it. On the anniversary of my housewarming, I decided to host a one-year home celebration. Unlike the previous year, I had no anxiety about whether people would show up. I knew they would, just as they had consistently shown up for me throughout the year. As I prepared for the gathering, I reflected on the profound lessons I had learned. True family is defined by actions, not blood. The people who had become my family over the past year had earned that designation through consistent presence, genuine interest, and mutual respect. They celebrated my successes without jealousy and supported me through challenges without judgment. Your achievements are valid regardless of others' recognition. The apartment I had worked so hard to obtain remained a significant accomplishment, regardless of my biological family's dismissal. I had learned to validate my own successes and to appreciate recognition from those who offered it genuinely. Creating boundaries is necessary for emotional health. Limiting my interactions with people who consistently made me feel inadequate, even when those people were family, had been essential to my well-being. Boundaries weren't walls meant to punish others. They were fences designed to protect myself. The courage to be vulnerable attracts the right people. By sharing my pain with Allison, Tyler, and Rachel that first night, I had opened the door to authentic connection. Vulnerability, I learned, wasn't weakness, it was the foundation of genuine relationship. Home is about the people you welcome, not just the space. My apartment had become a true home not because of its exposed brick walls or modern kitchen, but because of the laughter, tears, conversations, and connections it had witnessed. Sometimes rejection creates space for better connections. If my family had attended my housewarming party as I had hoped, I might never have formed the deep bonds that now enriched my life. What had felt like devastating abandonment had actually been the beginning of something beautiful. As guests began arriving for my one-year home celebration, I was struck by how different this felt from the anxious anticipation of the previous year. Michael greeted arrivals while I put final touches on the food. Allison and Tyler brought a house anniversary cake. Jessica arrived with a hand-painted card signed by everyone in our circle. During a quiet moment in the celebration, Michael clinked his glass for attention and raised a toast to Brooke, who turned an empty apartment into the warmest home I've ever known, and to all of us who found family in each other. As glasses were raised around the room, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. The journey hadn't been easy, and the pain of family rejection wasn't completely healed. But I had created something more valuable than I had initially sought, not just a home, but a community where I truly belong. Later that evening, as the party wound down and close friends lingered for one last drink, I stepped onto my balcony for a moment of quiet reflection. The Boston skyline glittered before me, a reminder of how far I had come and the life I had built for myself. Michael joined me, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Happy anniversary," he murmured against my hair. "Thank you," I replied, leaning back into his embrace. "Not just for tonight, but for showing up when no one else did." "Best decision I ever made," he said simply. As we stood there together, I thought about the many paths life could take and how often what seems like devastation can lead to unexpected joy. 1 year ago, sitting alone amid party decorations meant for guests who never arrived, I couldn't have imagined the fullness that would eventually replace the empty. I thought of others who might be watching this video, perhaps facing their own family disappointments or struggling to find belonging. If you've ever felt unseen, unvalued, or alone, know that family can be created as well as born into. Your worth isn't determined by those who fail to recognize it. And sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin with painful first steps. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family or build your own support system? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Did my revenge story of building a better life resonate with you? Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories, and hit that like button if you believe living well is the best revenge story of all. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that creating a chosen family can be the ultimate revenge story against those who never valued them. Remember that even the most difficult chapters can lead to unexpected blessings, and sometimes the sweetest revenge story is simply finding your true worth without those who couldn't see it. Thank you for being part of my journey, and I wish you the courage to create the connections that will make your life richer, whether they come from the family you were born into or the family you choose.